Hey there, and thank you so much for giving Orderimp a try. Hopefully, we'll be able to be helpful for you in your transition over to Shopify. I wanted to make this really quick video to just help you understand the process, learn a little bit more about how Orderimp works, and hopefully be a little bit more successful in actually getting all of your orders where they need to be. My name's Jacob. You'll probably come in contact with me if you reach out to the support email. I am the guy behind the curtain running the show, and I have a very small technical background. I did not code this site from scratch or anything, but have gotten pretty good at troubleshooting most of the little problems that come up when merchants are trying to switch over to Shopify. So hopefully, I'll be able to help you out. Um, the first thing that I wanted to talk about is what you see right here on the screen. This is the CSV order file. So when you export your orders from whatever platform that you're coming from, this is the file that is going to be generated by that platform. Now, if it doesn't look like this, reach out to support@orderimp.com and we'll give you a hand trying to get it into this format. But hopefully, this is what it's going to look like. Some of the more important things to note here is making sure that you have an ID column or an order number column. So this is how the system is going to identify a unique order. So if you have repeating numbers or other just non-unique identifiers, you're going to want to change that before you try uploading to Orderimp. The next thing is this email column. So make sure that every single order has an email. If there is no email, the system will not import it. And this is a Shopify rule, not an Orderimp rule. So unfortunately, it's not something we can make exceptions for either. The other thing is making sure that all of those emails are valid emails. So if there are typos, like somebody typing in .con instead of .com for an email, or just a non-valid email, somebody didn't want to provide their email and they put in something that's fake, those will get rejected by the system also. Obviously, you're not necessarily going to know if a email is fake ahead of time or not, but you can at least do a quick scan for empty emails. Easiest way to do that is just select this column, go up here to sort and filter, and then do either one of these sorts. It doesn't actually matter. But then it'll put all of the blank columns or all the blank cells either at the very top or the very bottom of this list, and you'll be able to scroll up or down to see if there are any empty or missing emails. The other reason that this is so important is that the system identifies customers based on unique emails. So when you have a order or multiple orders that have the same email, Shopify is going to associate all of those orders with the same customer. So if we have Tony Stark over here, if he's ordered multiple different times, then if you go into that customer profile on Shopify, you'll see all of the different orders that he's had in the past. The reason this can be a slight tricky situation is that if you don't have an email for an order and you put in a fake email, make sure that it's a unique fake email. Because otherwise you're going to end up with a whole bunch of orders associated with one customer instead of a whole bunch of unique orders with unique customers. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, feel free to reach out to Shopify or to support@orderimp.com, and we'll give you a hand if this is going to be a tricky situation for you. There's a pretty easy way in Excel to generate a whole list of unique emails, but I'm not going to go over it right now. I might do that in another tutorial later on, but for now, just know, make sure you have unique IDs, unique emails, and make sure that all of the orders or order dates are correct. One of the biggest tricky situations here is that if you are primarily from Europe, but non-US territories, you might write your date in a different order than the US writes their dates, and sometimes that can cause problems. So if you import an entire order file here and you notice that all of the dates are really wonky, take a look at this and see, maybe you're using the international format of day, month, year instead of month, day, year. Sometimes that will help out if you just switch the date format. Fulfillment status, that's pretty self-explanatory. Fulfilled, partially filled, not filled are generally the standard options here. You can even include payment methods, notes for either the order itself or for the customer. You can also include tags for the order or the customer as a separate unique column that can be mapped, and that will get associated. The great thing here is if you have different types of customers, like wholesale versus retail customers, you can use these tags, get them these notes added to the customer in Shopify, and then Shopify itself can add different tax categories and based on those tags. Some of the other things is you must have a total in the order for the order, for the amount, as well as for each line item. So on this particular sample sheet, you'll see that there's only one line item in each order. You can have multiple line items, no problem. They'll get matched up on this order ID and all included in the same order. But when you do that, you'll want to make sure that there's a column over here for line item total and then the order total. And each of those has to have a value. Again, this is a Shopify thing. They just require an order to actually have a value. Otherwise, it's not a valid order. This title column, this is the name of the item that was purchased. Again, this is just kind of some fun sample information. So there's not really a whole lot of extra data here. I would suggest having broken out people's first names and last names, and then if you want a third column that is first name and last name. The reason for this is that this individual first name and surname columns, that's how Shopify will identify the customer. So it creates a new customer based on that email and determines whether it's a unique customer based on the email. And then the name of that customer comes from this first name, surname column. And then thirdly, when you create the actual shipping and billing addresses, that name is going to come from either the combination of this or from a third column that has both first name and surname. Not required, but I definitely recommend having broken out first name and surname. So here's that tags column I was talking about earlier. So this is a pretty simple CSV file that you see right here. This is actually exactly in the format that Shopify uses. So yours probably will look different. It will probably have different columns. It may have more or less data. It's entirely dependent on how you export that file as to what this is going to look like. But for now, we're going to stick with this nice, simple, easy example just to make things go quicker. So that's what the CSV file, your order file, is going to look like. I'll move that out of the way. Now here is what Orderimp is going to look like when you first log in. Pretty simple interface here. You can either upload historical orders that are already paid and shipped, or you can upload new orders that have not yet been shipped, though I do recommend that they have been paid for because you cannot transfer over payment information. Down the side here, you'll have a quick menu. So if you've uploaded files in the past, this is where you're going to see any of those files. This next tab is any presets that you create. So when you map the data from your columns in the CSV order file over to what Shopify is looking for, you'll be able to save those settings as what we call a preset. And all of those presets are going to live right here in this tab. So you'll be able to reuse them as many times as you want. This next tab is any tasks that have been running. So any imports that I've done, you'll see that this is my demo account. I've used plenty of other samples in here before. It gives you all the information of when it started, when it finished, what the current status is. And then over here, you can either get rid of it if it's an old one that you don't want anymore, or if it's one that you had started and then stopped. Right here, you'll be able to either resume that import, or you can just get rid of it. And then if you have one that's in progress, that'll show up right here at the very top, and it'll show you how many orders have been imported, if there were any errors, and then how many total rows were in that file. One of the great things about Orderimp is you can also schedule tasks to happen, so you don't necessarily have to be doing it all yourself. You can also use FTP to pull files from a specified location, and if you've created that preset already, then a lot of this hard work will be done for you on an automatic schedule. If you set up any schedules, this is where that's going to show up. This next tab is the Orders tab. So this is going to show all of the orders that have been previously imported, as well as you'll see them popping in here in live stream as you're importing an order or importing a file. This is also where you'll be working with any errors. So you'll see here that there's a whole bunch of error files. There was something wrong with these orders. If I click in, you can just click on any one. It'll tell you exactly what the problem is. I can click up here, and then I'll have the option to edit any of the data that I need to edit, save that, and then once that's saved, I could click this button and send it off to Shopify. So if you have a whole lot of errors that just need some quick manual corrections, or I guess if you don't have a whole lot of errors that need some just quick manual correction, this would be the best place to do it. If there's a lot of errors, then I would recommend going back to that original file, finding those orders in the original CSV file and editing them there, and then just re-uploading. It'll be so much faster. One of the other cool things here is you can select multiple orders, you can delete them, and you can even delete them off of your Shopify store too. So if they imported, but they imported incorrectly, you'll be able to go in here and actually just wipe them out. You'll get your credits back, so you won't have lose any orders from it, and that's just pretty nice and simple. Then this last tab here is any import credits that you need. So 1 credit equals 1 order, and you'll want to make sure that you have enough credits before you start an import. Otherwise, the import will stop partway through when it runs out of credits. You can see how many credits you have up here in the corner, this credit limit. You see how many have been used versus how many you have. Again, this is my demo account, so obviously there's a whole ton of credits in it. But to start out with, you'll have 50 free credits. That's enough for you to either do a very small import entirely for free, or you can just play around with it, understand how the system works, and set up all of your presets using the free credits, and then you'll be able to come over here, purchase the credits that you need, and then when you have the larger amount of credits, you can do your full import without wasting any credits on just trying to figure out how to make it right. One of the things that I do want to mention here, though, is that when you're watching this, it might look a little bit different because I actually intend to get rid of this credits package just over here, the expiring credits. There's no reason to have expiring credits. If you've paid for them, you should get them forever. So this option may not be here if you're watching this video in the future. We're just going to have credits that once you pay for them, they're in your account for as long as you need them. The other option here is the Orderimp White Glove service. This is basically a done for you service where you'll send me your file. We'll either do an email or a phone call to talk about any particular issues that you might be having, learn a little bit about your situation. If you want anything like a prefix or any special notes or care to be paid attention to, we'll talk about that, and then basically I'll just take care of it for you. You'll add me as an admin on your shop, and then I'll just handle everything. The only things that I will not do is I will not add in any missing information. So if there are any errors in the file that need to be corrected, that's on you. And then the only other thing to note is that if your import needs to happen in multiple stages, so we import half the orders now and then another half of orders in 3 weeks, that counts as 2 different imports, just because of how much time it takes to actually do all of this from my end. And this is not my full-time job. I run it, I treat it like a full-time job. I don't I make sure that I'm giving this all the seriousness that it needs. But something like that would be 2 unique imports and would thus require 2 different white glove service fees. You'll see we typically take less than a week to get this whole process done. In fact, usually once you send us your file, it only takes a day or 2 for us to actually get the first sample orders over for you to review. And then once you've approved our sample orders, we'll send in everything else. So in most cases, it takes just a couple days for us to get everything over. You'll have a chance to then review everything. If you spot any errors, we'll do our best to help you out with those error corrections. But the whole process typically, we say right here, 1 to 5 days, and it just depends on how busy we are as to whether it's faster than that or not. Let's see. So, and then of course we have our support system over here. I've put a lot of work into trying to make this whole thing work out as best as possible. As much information as I possibly can put into this. Every question that I get asked at the support email, I try and make a new knowledge base article for. So you'll be able to see a whole lot of things in here, from just general frequently asked questions, getting started, tips and tricks. If you are curious about our privacy policy, data collection, terms of service, we have all of that here. And then all kinds of helpful articles for error messages and troubleshooting. So we have all of that in here as well. It's just support.orderimp.com will take you over here. And then of course you can always just ask at support@orderimp.com, the email address, and we'll always be more than helpful to, or happy to help you out there. One final tip for getting any sort of support, if you just go to our website, orderimp.com, we also have a live chat widget over there. So during business hours on Pacific Coast time in the US, we'll typically always get to you within just a few minutes. Sometimes we're not able to get to you right away, but there's also an option to have us just email you back. So drop your information in there and we'll get back to you as well. Now, let's do a quick import to show you how this process goes. Right here is your dashboard. You can give that a click. You'll see this little interstitial asking about where you want your file to come from. So I like using local files. I think it's the easiest and most efficient way to actually do this, most reliable way. But if you have something like maybe a Dropbox option or FTP, you can do one of these more advanced options and also even schedule your imports from here. I'm just going to stick to uploading a local file. You can just drag and drop it onto the screen. It'll upload. And then this first page right here, it's just asking what row in that file is the header row. So it wants to know what are the labels of these columns, and in addition to that, which row is it not trying to import. So it's pretty easy. You just select whichever one is the header row. This is my header row. You can also see a full preview of your sheet right here. If you need to add 2 different files, so some systems for some reason will only export certain information to one file and certain information to another file. So let's say the system that you're coming from will only export the order number to one file, but it'll give you the line item information on a second file. You can click right here. You'll add a second file, and then you'll be able to select first this header row, but you'll also select this column, the order number column, and that's the order or the column that it will know to join the 2 sheets using. And then everything that you do from here on out, you'll be selecting for each of those separate sheets. I'm not going to show you that today, but reach out if you need to merge 2 different files into one, and I'll be happy to give you a hand there. For now, you'll just have that header row selected, click Save, and then you'll be able to select any presets. So if you're going from one Shopify store to another Shopify store, use this Shopify preset. It will make your life so much easier. We have basically pre-mapped all of the columns that Shopify uses. So if you're going from one store to another store, this is basically your one-click solution. You won't have to do hardly anything from here on out. For any other system, we are working on adding more like BigCommerce and WooCommerce and adding some more of these Magento, more common platforms. But for now, maybe you'll just hit create a preset, or if you have previously used this and you already have other presets in here from previous imports that you've done, they'll all show up down here at the bottom, and you'll be able to use those to make this whole process a little bit faster. For now, we're just going to hit create a preset, assuming that this is a brand new import and that you haven't done this before. From here on out, the next several pages, it's just mapping the information. So right here, you'll see a nice little red dot that says what information is absolutely required that you must map. Anything without a red dot, you typically can get away without having information there if you just don't have it. However, I do recommend adding as much information as you possibly can. So over here, you'll see Shopify wants to know what is the order number. Now over here, these are all of the columns that are in your sheet, and you can go down here to the bottom of the screen and see the preview. So what's the order number that we're looking for? The order numbers are in the ID column. So I'm going to select ID. I don't have any specific notes, but we do have a notes column, so I can include that. What currency are we using? This one isn't defined in this sheet, I don't think. Oh, yes, it is, currency. So you can have multiple currencies, and Shopify will make sure that that gets mapped correctly. However, if you don't have that column, but you know that everything is either, let's say, Great British Pounds or US dollars, you would be able to, so these two up here, this would treat every row in this entire order or order sheet as the same. So if I select US dollar, everything is going to be imported as if it were US dollars. Because I actually do have a currency column, that's what I'm going to collect or select here. The other thing that you can do is you can always type in any custom value that you want here, hit add, and it will hard code that value in for every single order that's imported. We don't want to do that this time, but just to let you know, it is there as an option if you want. Browser IP, I don't have that column, so I'm just going to leave that blank. Order total, go down here, order total, order date, total weight. Do we have a total weight column? Yep, there we go, the very last column. So these values on the left side here, this is what Shopify wants to know about. The values in the dropdown, those are the headers in your sheet. So just to try and reiterate that, so hopefully you understand. This whole section up here, this is creating the information on the order, and then this is creating information on the customer. So if you have tags for both order and customer, make sure that this one gets mapped to the tags for your order, this one gets mapped to the tags for your customer. Same for notes. This is the customer notes, and then this is the order notes. I'm going to go ahead and skip on to the next page, just really quickly add that in so it'll let us. Now you're on the addresses page. So I typically prefer to check both of these boxes where if any information is missing from either the billing address or the shipping address, but the other column does have that information, it'll go ahead and use that. So if perhaps I have only billing addresses for everything on my order, but we presume that the shipping address is the same, then it'll go ahead and just pull all that information over from any of the mapped columns on the billing address side. So this one, same situation. it's just going to ask us for information like the zip code, where's the city. So name, this is where I was talking about. It is helpful to have one column in your order file that has both first name and surname, because this is where it will be looking for that combined name. So you'll see I don't have both. So I've only got them split out into first name and surname. I'm just going to include surname here, since that is typically more commonly accepted via the traditional mail and parcel carriers. So hopefully that will still work out. If you have a phone number, company name, country, sometimes it's country code, sometimes it's country, sometimes it's called province, which is also down here under state. It just depends on the platform you're coming from as to which one this is going to look like. Let's see, address, state, province. Now here's where you have the split names. So let's see, did I go past it? There we go. Surname, first name. This one actually does have country code, so we can include that. Remember, down here, you can always look at the preview of your order file if you need to take a look at it. Now, because I checked both of these boxes, I'm not going to need to do this column. Again, this is just a sample order sheet, so I know that it's all the same information, but you may have separate billing and shipping addresses, so make sure that you fill out both of these columns. We'll go on to the next page. So now this is mapping the specific line items within the order. So widget 1, widget 2, widget 3 in order number 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is going to assume that you have every line item on a new line. So some platforms, when they export the data, will export line items in columns instead of rows. I highly recommend trying to get these exported into rows. That will make your life so much easier. So assuming that they're in rows, then in here, you're just going to go ahead and select whatever you need to. So in this, we can select our price. We can select the name of the item. So if we had a SKU, we can include that here. Again, highly recommended. That'll help keep things separate when they get imported into Shopify. The other great thing is if the SKU is the same in Shopify and your old system, then Shopify will recognize that that is a product that is already loaded into the system. So if you're switching over for the very first time, I highly recommend going over, setting up all of your products in Shopify first, and then doing these order imports, because it'll match it up with the correct items in your Shopify shop. So you can do things like, are all these taxable? If everything in this entire order sheet that we're importing is taxable, you could just go ahead and hard code in yes. Otherwise, if you have a specific column that asks whether it's taxable or not, you could map to that column. Quantity, how many of this widget was ordered. So right there, if there was a discount applied specifically to this item, not to the order as a total, but specifically to this item, then you would be able to map that here. And then fulfillment status, because we're doing all historical orders, I would feel comfortable just doing this hard code option of fulfilled. If you have a mix of fulfilled, unfulfilled, or partially filled orders, I would recommend going and mapping it to a column, but make sure that all values in that column are one of these three. If there's any different wording, then Shopify is not going to accept it. So for this case, we're going to go ahead and say that they're all fulfilled. You could even map a column for showing what fulfillment service you used if you have that. Now, just really quick one to mention, if your order sheet does include all of the line items as columns instead of rows, then you're going to want to use this button up here, save and add one more line item, which will, you'll see, add a second a second set of drop downs. So it saved all the first ones that we just mapped, and then here's a second one. And you'll want to do one of these for every single column of line items that are in your sheet. Again, it'll make your life much easier, and you only need one of these if they're in rows. But if they're in columns, then you'll want to be using these multiple mapping fields. We're going to go ahead and hit next. It doesn't matter that I didn't fill that out. It'll just disregard it. Now over here is the last page, and probably one of the more important pages of this whole process. So first, of course, we'll be able to map any shipping information. You'll want to make sure that this is included just so that all the math is correct. So if you had the subtotal and order total mapped on those previous fields, but they aren't matching up when you have it in Shopify, there's a good chance that you just forgot to include the shipping charges or the tax or something like that. So just make sure you have all that information available to you. Now here is the discount codes for the whole order. So on that previous page, we applied any discounts to specific line items. This is where we apply any discounts for the entire order. So if we have that, we can include that right here. I don't have any in this sample file, but if I did, this is where I would map it. You could select what kind of discount it is, whether it's the percentage, shipping, fixed amount. And then if you have a column that tracks all of your coupon codes that have been used, this is where you could include those columns as well. One important thing to note here with discount codes, make sure that the value is always a positive number in your spreadsheet. Negative numbers will get rejected by Shopify. It won't work. So make sure that if it's a reduction of $5 to the order, that column value is just the number 5, not -5, because that'll get rejected. So positive discount values. If you're importing new orders and you want this to show up as a new order in Shopify, one, I would highly suggest segmenting those out and doing one import for historical orders and a separate import for new orders. But if you're doing new orders, you can check this box, and then Shopify will know to keep that as a live order. Historical orders are going to be imported already archived. So if you look into your dashboard, your analytics, and things aren't looking quite right, you're missing a bunch of orders that you are sure that you had already imported, they're probably just archived. So go into your orders and unarchive them, and then all of that data is going to show up in your analytics and dashboard. For now, I'm going to leave this unchecked because I don't want these to come as new orders. I want these to be historical orders. I want to use the order IDs that are already on my file. So this stays checked by default, but if you want to generate new order numbers, so if you're importing new orders up here, you might want to instead select allow Shopify to auto-generate. I tend to prefer using my old order IDs, and then to denote something new, I also like using these add prefix. So with this, I can go in here and let's say I want to add IMP dash and then the existing order numbers. I'll just type that in right here, and that will append that prefix to the existing order numbers, or you can do a suffix over here if you'd prefer. I like just using prefix and then the order number to denote something that has been imported from a particular location. One of the other really common things that people ask about and want to know about is what happens if you have either duplicate orders in the order file, or if there's already an order in Shopify that has the same order number. So right here is where you tell the system how to do that. You can either pick delete existing orders and create a new one. So this just gets rid of the old order and imports the new one, or skip and mark orders that already exist as duplicate. So in this case, it'll say, hey, there's already an order in Shopify. I'm just going to skip over this. And then in Orderimp, it'll show that order as being a duplicate order. Now let's assume that we have everything in here set up how we want it to be. I'll hit complete. It'll tell me if there's anything that I missed. So if I forgot an email or forgot to include line item price or something like that, instead of taking me to this page, it'll say missing X information. And then you'll be able to go back and correct that. Now this is just your preview page. So you'll be able to see order number, tax, total, the order date, email for the client, billing address. We said shipping address, billing address to be the same. So in Shopify, it's just going to pull all of this information for both of these. Here's the line item, the SKU, any discount codes that were pulled in for that would get mapped here, shipping charges. You can just kind of scroll through. It'll give you the first couple orders on your file. And so you can just see if something looks correct or incorrect. Common ones are if the math doesn't work out, if the order total is a significant difference from the subtotal or the tax and shipping. So that's just a good way to kind of do a really quick sense check that you mapped all of the columns correctly. If you see something that doesn't look right, you can just click right here, return and edit preset. That'll take you back to those previous pages and you'll be able to edit any information that you need. Or if you like it, hit send to Shopify, go ahead and start it. Okay. And now you're going to see that this is starting to work on importing those orders. I refresh the page, already done, took care of everything. In fact, it overshot, so it's going to fix its own errors. If I refresh, that should get fixed. You'll see down here all of the new email or all the new orders that just came in. If I go to this one, you'll see this is the order that we just started, this process that we just started. You could click stop if you want it to stop. I highly recommend letting it import a couple orders, hitting stop, going over to your Shopify store, making sure everything looks good over there, and then coming back and restarting these tasks. On your store side of things, before you do that, I highly recommend go to settings, go to notifications, and down here at the bottom, turning off notifications. So if you fail to do this, you're going to get a new order email for every single order that's been imported. So if you're importing 10,000 orders, you're going to get 10,000 emails. So go to your settings, notifications, and then scroll down here to this recipients and disable. You can see mine is already disabled, but disable those notifications. That way you're going to save yourself a whole lot of grief and a very full inbox. You go up to your orders, you'll be able to see all orders that are in here. Everything is grayed out because it's already been archived. Let's say I want to unarchive, just go to actions, unarchive, and then this will show up there. It's not grayed out anymore, and this will show up in your analytics. So in this case, I just don't have the, let's go back here to, I don't know what year I selected, but we'll just go way back to 2012. There. Now you can see all of the unarchived orders in this graph. Again, this is just a test shop, so it's not real, but it does act as if it's a real shop. And this is kind of what that would look like. So that's the quick walkthrough of Orderimp. Hopefully this has been useful. Feel free to reach out at any time to support@orderimp.com or go to our knowledge base, support.orderimp.com. There's tons of great information in there. Most questions that you probably have already been answered in that location. And then last case, If there's something that you need urgent help with and it's during business hours, Pacific Coast time in the US, head over to our website, orderimp.com, and then you'll see a chat widget on there to get live chat. We usually are able to answer within just a few minutes, though sometimes we are working on something else or not at the computer. So please be patient if we're not getting to you right away. I will absolutely make sure that you are responded to as fast as possible. So that's Orderimp. Thank you so much for giving us a try, and we're here to help. So feel free to reach out at any time.